swallow my pumpkin spice, 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 spice. So it goes down so nice, nice, nice.
One cold, late October night, Belle McFay, a freshman witch at the Hagmore School of Magic, is practicing her fire spell when she gets rudely interrupted by a shadowy figure darting past. Before Belle could say anything, she's yanked by her ear and placed in front of a council of witches where she's accused of ruining the ceremonial Walpurgisnacht brew. Though she pleads innocence and accuses the shadowy figure of the misdeed, her efforts fall on deaf ears. The witches charge Belle to right what she's wronged, and now Belle must collect the 3 rare ingredients necessary to remake the brew. But time isn't on her side. Walpurgisnacht approaches, and with each passing second without the brew, the Council of Witches grows increasingly restless, as if their fates and the fate of the entire world rests squarely on the shoulders of a mouthy little freshman witch. I'm really going to show my bias and age here, but I freaking love Mystik Belle. It's short, it's lighthearted, and its 16 and 32-bit aesthetic takes me back to the days when my mom's boyfriend would rent a Sega Saturn from our local Blockbuster for the weekend. Yeah, you could rent consoles back in those days. I am old. Anyway, Mystik Belle's a self-proclaimed point-and-click Metroidvania and should be a game I hate because it's so puzzly. I think my distaste in puzzle platforming Metroidvanias has been well documented at this point. But, man, Mystik Belle does a really great job of not only making the puzzles, let's say, interesting, but also nailing everything you need to nail in order to make a great Metroidvania. I was genuinely surprised at how well they pulled off the MV formula in such a short time span while also throwing in point-and-click puzzles and tropes. It shouldn't work, but it does, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's start with the combat. It's standard run and gun affair. You shoot fireballs at enemies and smack them with your broom if they get too close. You can also kill them if they get too close. For years, I've been complaining about contact damage in video games, and Mystik Belle finally lets me turn the table on these jabronis by having them take damage when they touch me. Of course, you still take damage upon contact, but it's still funny and oddly cathartic, especially because you become so OP in the end. You can literally just walk through enemies like you're the goddamn Terminator. Being a quote-unquote point-and-click Metroidvania, there's plenty of gating going on beyond its puzzles. The abilities Belle unlocks to overcome obstacles related to traversal are your basic of the basic MV moves. Double jump, a near-infinite air dash, a technique that lets Metroid crawl into smaller areas, a wall-busting attack upgrade, and a spell to breathe underwater. There's also an offensive charged shot you can unlock that's used for killing and for solving puzzles. You gotta love versatility like that. Boss battles are a highlight. They're mostly big and provide a decent challenge. Nothing you're gonna struggle with as long as you move and don't try the old tank and spank technique like I did because I'm an idiot and also lazy. But if you do find yourself struggling, you can always level grind to overwhelm them. Belle gains EXP via murder, which increases your HP and firepower with each level. Not only do her fireballs get stronger, but they'll spread out and get bigger too. But don't get too excited. I think the level cap is only like 8, and it takes forever to gain a level, especially when dying takes all of your EXP away with no way of regaining it with a corpse run or something. This is probably my harshest criticism for Mystik Belle. Its deaths are too punitive for the sake of padding out the runtime. And that's just on normal. The hard difficulty sends you back to the game's beginning location every time you die. It's not too bad because the game map isn't huge, but it's dumb and annoying all the same. And that's pretty much it for character progression. Infrequent level ups that increase HP and firepower. There's no gear or shops or skill points. They kept things simple, and I think it works because a lot of the game's complexity went into its puzzles. So this is where Mystik Belle deviates from your traditional MV. It's billed as a point-and-click Metroidvania, though you don't literally point-and-click at stuff. It's a bona fide platformer through and through. If you grew up playing point-and-click adventures, then you know what to expect. Find items, find where to use these items, fail at using these items correctly, rub random items together against random stuff, fail more, then finally discover shit by accident. And wouldn't you know it, Mystik Belle's got this infuriating gameplay loop on lockdown. I say infuriating because it can be, but not in a bad way. Essentially, as you explore, you'll find stuff that you can put into your inventory with the hopes that said stuff will be useful in the future, either to solve a puzzle or to finish a side quest. Spoilers, not everything is useful, which sucks because your inventory can only hold so much, forcing you to place items in chests scattered around the map. This creates some frustrating back and forth between chests if you left a useful item in one. And this frustration gets exacerbated in hard mode because the multiple chests no longer share inventory, meaning you have to remember which item you placed in which chest. I didn't play this mode because that sounds like literal torture. The item-based puzzles in Mystik Belle range from "that was clever" to "that was straight up horse shit." One of the earlier puzzles where you need to get electricity for Frankenstein's monster falls under the clever category and was fun to work out. But then there's this werewolf's toenail clipping puzzle that includes a red herring and some bullshit. Perhaps if I was more observant, I'd have figured it out sooner, but how was I supposed to know that bolt cutters were in the death goo? Is that where people put their tools? In the death goo? But that's kind of the fun with point-and-click adventures, right? Having only obvious solutions would make the game tedious after so long, so throwing in some obscure crap every so often keeps you on your toes. All in all, I had a good time running around the map, finding odd items, and thinking of outside-of-the-box ways to use these items to solve problems. And that's pretty much the extent of Mystik Belle's exploration. Run around the relatively small map, find items and puzzles, and clear enemy-cluttered screens, either with fireballs or with your face. The environments look nice, and they're exactly what you'd expect for a game about a little student witch. Creepy halls full of occult stuff, a library, a sewer/dungeon, a spooky forest, and then you have your platforming staples like the underwater area and some caverns. Admittedly, for a short game, that's a lot of biomes, even if they are tiny. Thankfully, there's fast travel, though it's limited to stationary warp mirrors. But because the map's so small, backtracking's hardly an issue, especially after you really start opening the game up, either by solving puzzles or finding shortcuts with your abilities. There aren't a whole lot of secrets in this game, but the secrets that are there are pretty awesome. And this is why I said the devs nailed the MV formula so well. Even with its short runtime, Mystik Belle hides a secret item that leads to a secret biome with a secret spell that's super helpful. These are all things Metroidvania fans daydream about, instead of paying attention to their coworkers' boring stories about weddings or new babies or whatever those losers talk about. Starting this secret journey requires some luck, and the secret item and biome and method of getting there is never alluded to throughout the game. And that's what makes it so fun to discover, because it really does come out of left field. Normally I'd be upset with something so cool having no preamble or setup, but because this whole secret path isn't needed to complete the game or to get the true ending, I'll allow it! It feels like an Easter egg of anything, and the reward's solid. And you heard that right, boys. Mystik Belle has a true ending. That's how you get bonus points on this channel, that's for sure. You can complete the game normally by doing what's expected of you from the Witch's Council, or you can go off the beaten path to find lore scrolls that tell you what's really going on. Some of these scrolls were pretty well hidden, and I had a blast scouring the map to find them, even if I found most of them accidentally. But accidentally finding stuff is just as fun for an MV fan. Let's finish this up by talking about Mystik Belle's atmosphere and narrative. I already disclosed my love for the game's aesthetic in the intro. The sprites are cute, and a bit chunky. The animations are fluid and reminiscent of the era it's emulating, and the environments, though cliché, add to the enchanted and supernatural setting. The music's typically bouncy with 16-bit bleeps and bloops, with a touch of cartoony spookiness. The enemy designs are all over the place, ranging from the basics like skeletons to the unique like gelatin cat cubes. Regardless of their novelty or lack thereof, enemies always look good, and there's a ton of them. The enemy variety on display is impressive for such a short game. As for tone, the game's lighthearted all around, especially in its plot and writing. It's weird though, because as childish and silly as the game's characters and jokes are, there's so much cussing. Like, a lot. Obviously, as an adult, I don't give a shit about curse words, but this game feels like it was made for children. But I wouldn't want my kids playing it because of the mouth on some of these characters. The only other critique I have concerns its true narrative. To obtain it, you must discover the true nature of Walpurgisnacht, which is exactly what I wanted to discover, so hiding that from players gives them strong motivation to unlock that knowledge, thus making the reveal that much more satisfying. However, unlocking that knowledge requires you to find hidden scrolls throughout the map. From a gameplay perspective, it's solid and enjoyable. From a narrative perspective, it's kind of a letdown. Like, why are all these super secret scrolls just lying around? It's kind of silly, but I think that's the point. Ultimately, I loved the true ending's path. But unfortunately, though the path to the true ending was good, the final fight and ending itself felt way too rushed. I absolutely hate when they add a brand new element to the game's final fight. Why do devs do this? Mystik Belle's final fight was funny, but everything I've worked for and earned up to that point goes right out the window. They just give you a mech with a new control scheme and gameplay style, making your levels and spells useless. And it'll take you a good few deaths before you figure out what you're supposed to do in the fight. It's awkward, a little frustrating, and just weird. It fits the game's tone, and I liked the spirit of it, but there had to have been a better way to pull this off. As it stands, it's super clunky and leaves a bad taste in your mouth for an otherwise excellent game. Mystik Belle is a surprisingly great Metroidvania. At just a little over 3 hours, I was able to have a pretty fun adventure full of weird characters, silly scenarios, and fun gameplay. The devs' understanding and love for Metroidvanias shows with their inclusion of the finer things that make the genre so endearing, such as the secret biome and the hidden scrolls to unlock a true ending. As a matter of fact, the entire game exudes passion and love, from its sprites to its music to its wackiness. The ending was a little half-baked, and some of the puzzle solutions were a little too eccentric. But despite these minuscule shortcomings, the game's a brilliant homage and perfectly captures the tone and feel of a beloved bygone era. Should you play Mystik Belle? I think so. With it being so short, veteran MV fans could do worse with a Saturday night. And newcomers might appreciate its unique take on the genre. Of course, if you're not a fan of point-and-click-like gameplay, Mystik Belle isn't going to change your mind. Which is a pity, because the ratio of fun to time spent suggests this might be the perfect game to pick up on a sale. That's just science.